Your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, welcome back. And we have Phil Holloway back with us. It's been a little while, and the illustrious Viva Frei. Saw you guys in person in West Palm Beach.
And I want to go back.
I want to go back too. That was a lot of fun.
Dude, coming back to Florida, especially from the insane asylum of Canada, is like, it's like stepping into the realm of the free. It's a wild difference.
That was a good time. And I go back and I show the videos that we did down there, that you streamed down there, to my family, to prove to them that I actually was where I said I was for that weekend. But you know, we went to Florida again in July, but Alaska. I've been all over creation this summer, so it feels great to be back here chatting with you guys on a Friday.
Did you just say you've been all over creation?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, if you count creation as being Alaska and Florida, that's where I've been.
What does creation
Hawaii
mean?
Not long before that too. So hold on, it was Hawaii, then Florida, then Alaska, then Florida. I mean, this guy is just all over the freaking planet.
But are you, Phil? You're referring to the world, the Earth as a creation, right?
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
that's my choice of what do you refer to it as?
No. I didn't know what you meant. I thought it was like might have been a convention or something like.
No. That's the secret cult meetings are different. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to make up for, with COVID and everything, when the world shut down and there was we wanted to do a lot of stuff with the kids a little bit earlier in their grade school careers, but of course things got delayed. So we're trying to pack a lot of it into what time we've got left. So traveling's good though. That's time with the family and making memories. That's why we all do what we do, is so we can do those things.
All right. Well, okay. Since we started off talking about Florida, I want you guys to help me understand this Disney story. So I think Florida, I think Disney, I know they're in Anaheim, but who cares? That's just Disneyland. Disney World's a much bigger affair. You have an NYU doctor who was suing. The NYU doctor died. Her widower is suing them because they served her peanuts or whatever in the food, or the claim is, and she died. And Disney is saying, "Oh no, you subscribe to Disney Plus, so you can't sue us." Help me understand.
Are we allowed? Well, I'm going to say, are we allowed swearing? I haven't read the proceedings yet. I mean, I know exactly where it's going and what it is. I just want to make sure of one matter of fact. The deceased was an employee of Disney, correct?
No. I do not believe she was an employee. She just was a doctor, I think an ER doctor, who traveled there. Okay,
so set that as, because I wasn't sure if this was like an unemployment arbitration or. All right, the bottom line, Phil, we've done a bit. I mean, I've done arbitration up in Canada when I was a practicing lawyer. They interpret those clauses very broadly, where the arbitrators determine their own jurisdiction, and to the extent that there's any reference to arbitration, typically in the contract between the parties, they'll send it to arbitration first to see if the arbitrators determine their own jurisdiction. Here, from what I understood, it was in an ancillary streaming contract that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. And I guess they found a judge who's, I won't say corrupt, but maybe easily swayed. Or
here's a clip. Let's watch and just find out so we can get the context.
Disney after his wife died following a meal. He claims that a restaurant at Disney Springs served her food that ended up killing her. The couple ate at the Raglan Road Irish pub last October. According to this lawsuit, the waiter said the food would be allergy-free because the couple was concerned with severe dairy and nut allergies. Well, after dinner, the woman collapsed and later died at a hospital. A medical exam found that she died from an allergic reaction, and she had high amounts of dairy and nuts in her system. An attorney that specializes in these kinds of cases has some advice to help keep businesses and customers safe.
Okay, so that's just the basic premise of how she died. So she goes to a restaurant, she eats food, there's something in the food that could have potentially killed her. I'm trying to be really careful, legally speaking. What the F does that have to do with her husband subscribing to Disney Plus, a streaming service?
Well, I haven't seen their, the fine print. If you sign up for Disney Plus, nobody ever reads the fine print. You just agree, and give them your credit card, and you're off to streaming your favorite Disney shows, right? But Disney is like most businesses, at least large businesses, there's different sort of layers of it, right? And
Sure.
different subsidiaries and everything. But there's probably some big parent up there that is sort of over all of this. And I imagine in the Disney Plus terms and conditions, there's probably something that she checked without, or they checked without reading it, that sends it to arbitration or some type of waiver of liability that they're seeking to enforce in the context of her visiting the property. That's how this looks to me without actually seeing the fine print.
Okay, that's to me, it's like I buy something at Whole Foods and I choke to death, and they want to dismiss because I have an Amazon subscription.
Yeah,
Hunley, I'll be doing a car vlog on this later. I mean, I'm laughing because of the sheer preposterousness of this.
It's absurd.
Let me. I found the motion to compel arbitration. Let me see if I can stick this in the private chat.
Oh yeah, or just share it.
I don't know. I could do it. Whatever. Here, I'll just do it here. No, it's a joke. It's an absolute abuse of the arbitration process. Like that he signed up for a trial of Disney streaming, which says any and all disputes arising between the party and Disney should be submitted to arbitration. And if you, I haven't gotten through this yet. I'm just looking for the. Piccolo accepted the Disney Plus subscriber agreement. The term in use contains a binding arbitration clause. It's laughably stupid. You just hope that you get to an arbitrator who, when adjudicating on their own jurisdiction, says, no, we don't have jurisdiction over this. I mean, it's between the estate of his wife in any event. So I don't know how they get past the argument of whether or not she signed on to this. But it's absolute abuse, because what this effectively does, to the extent I would presume that their arbitration is going to be confidential, presumably also not susceptible of appeal, binding and final, and so they're going to have justice in the dark, and no one's going to know what the hell's going on with the Disney restaurant, or the Disney liability, or the Disney negligence.
Oh, and I love it too. It was
court is that in?
Trial. He didn't even pay for the full thing. It was a trial arrangement. God, this just makes it even more insulting.
9th Judicial District in and for Orange County, Florida, Phil.
Orange County. Okay, I'm looking at it. You shared it, and I'm pulling it up as we speak. So I'm looking at it too. Yeah.
No, it's grotesque. But the problem there, this is not victim blaming, and there's no but. From a neurotic perspective, if you have a deathly allergy to peanuts, dairy, you're literally leaving your life in the hands of some busboy or chef at a restaurant. I mean, like, why would you even eat at a restaurant? I know it's not a great life, but it's a life.
Well, I can speak to that. I have a child who's got a peanut allergy, and unfortunately, as he's gotten older, it's not like he's going to die if a dust of peanut dust flies in the room or something. But I carried that boy when he was about 18 months old. I ran with him into an emergency room because he was blue and going into anaphylaxis. And, it scared the hell out of us. And we didn't know at that point to what extent he may be allergic. And as I said, fortunately, he's outgrown it. But some people don't. Some people have to have service dogs as adults that will sniff you before you enter their home to see if you've got any residue. Mm-hmm. And so, people who have that kind of allergies typically, have EpiPens that they have access to more or less at all times, depending on how allergic they get.
This is significant too, Phil.
But you can't really just not participate in society because you've got an allergy. So it sounds to me like they tried to warn or request some kind of accommodations, and restaurants do make that. A lot of places you go, they ask you, are there any allergies we need to know about?
Look at the chat. It was a restaurant that specialized for those with allergies.
Oh,
so this is even worse.
So now they're advertising, if you have your allergies, come here, you'll be safe.
Correct.
When I was a kid at a camp that I used to go to died of a peanut allergy, because not even from eating it. Someone cut his sandwich with a knife, and they were on a camping trip. It was the most traumatizing thing ever. I just from my perspective, I would lead a normal life. I just wouldn't eat at any place with food that I didn't prepare for myself, because you're relying on the diligence of nincompoops for your own existence.
I agree, but I agree with Phil too. I mean, do you check out of the world? Do you live in a bubble? Do you be like Bubble Boy, the John Travolta movie, and walk around? I mean, how do you survive in society? It starts to become really problematic, and supposedly, these places are making accommodations or trying to help you. Apparently, she did have an EpiPen, did use the EpiPen, so she did come prepared. there seems like there should be some degree of liability.
Well, and Phil, in my own practice, I mean, I had a couple of cases of allegations of people having reactions from food, not anaphylaxis, but like gluten allergies. I was like, man, you get traumatized by your own life experience directly and indirectly. I would not withdraw from society, but I absolutely would not eat at a restaurant. Period.
Look, we have a fan, David.
Yeah, but I think this is a joke. Who?
Viva lost your mind. Let me see.
Barnes forced a goat on me. I don't even know what that means. I thought it was a joke, so I was.
I don't know. Supposedly, I'm retarded too. So, okay. Hey, thank you.
Have you ever met? I've never. Seattle Judy looks new. That's not the one that I typically see in the chat.
No, I'm not familiar with Seattle.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I have not listed my mind yet. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay.
Yes, and I guess we're otherly abled or whatever it is.
There's other things to think about this contract. If it's, if a contract term is just unconscionable, a court can choose not to enforce it. And this also could be a tactic used to bring the other side to the negotiating table. So they're throwing up all these defenses and doing so as a way to maybe urge some kind of settlement. So we just have to wait and see where this goes.
I don't. I will jump the gun on this. It's an absolute abuse of the judicial process. I'd like to see the ruling that it might be one of those, look, I don't want to take any chances. I'll let the arbitrator determine his or her own jurisdiction. I trust they'll come to the right decision. There's no realm of the universe where even if you subscribe to Disney Plus, think about where that goes in terms of, I don't know how many subscribers are at Disney Plus, but not immunizing Disney from liability, just making it very beneficial for them to ever be sued by anybody for any reason whatsoever if they have a Disney Plus account.
Yeah.
Could there be criminal liability here too? I'm just curious because if they advertise this as a safe location and they were warned, et cetera. I mean, Alec Baldwin was charged for negligent homicide. Could this be that case? Like, let's say if they find out somebody in the back is like, oh, you know what? They didn't have the normal oil, but peanut oil was on sale this week. So screw it. I bought some.
Well, for sure. That would have nothing to do with the civil claim arbitration or not. And presumably they'll file a complaint and do an investigation.
It would have to be, it's gross negligence plus. There's the criminal negligence is always hard to define. And it's oftentimes in the eye of the beholder. There are people that look at the Alec Baldwin situation that feel that that's negligence. It shouldn't be a criminal charge. There's other people who feel strongly the other way around. And it's all very fact dependent, like specifically what happened in this specific case, in this context of all the facts and circumstances. And that would be for a local prosecutor to decide. But if it were Fannie Willis, she'd probably go for it because she goes for everything.
All right. Speaking of which, you want to catch us up on Georgia, what's going on? I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to say one thing here to Phone Punk, who says, so you just go out with friends and decline to eat anything. Screw that. Accuse me of being too self-preservationist, but I would rather be alive than dead with a good claim. Yeah. And also this is, I'm not kosher whatsoever, but I've grown up with a bunch of people who are so kosher, they'll go to a restaurant and won't eat anything. And they'll just ask for a potato baked in aluminum foil. And those are the decisions that people make, or the realities of everybody's life. You do what is required for self-preservation without taking unnecessary risks, where the risks cataclysmic outweigh the benefits of having a meal. So, or you bring your own food and explain to the staff. But it's terrible. That's not to downplay anything. It's objectively terrible. It's a nightmare. Sorry.
It really is. No, that's fine. All right. So what's going on? Catch us up in Georgia before David checks.
All right. Well, so in Georgia, so you got the Fannie Willis versus Trump, which is one of the main ones that most people are sort of following. It's paused the Court of Appeals docketed the issue. She's been ruled, or the claim has been made that she should be removed from the case, disqualified for actual and appearance of conflict of interest. The trial judge said that while her relationship with her underling prosecutor, no pun intended, was in fact improper, it didn't rise to the level of her having to be removed. That's the Reader's Digest version. So there was an appeal, a rare pretrial appeal. Appeals normally have to wait until after there's a conviction, and then you get to appeal it 15 years later or whatever. But here the judge allowed, which is, it's only if the trial judge allows, can you have a pre-trial a pre-verdict, pre-judgment appeal in the middle of the trial. So everything's on pause. Oral arguments in the Georgia Court of Appeals are scheduled for, I think, the first week of December. I was talking with our friend Ashley Merchant, who is the lawyer who represents a Trump co-defendant. She is the Aaron Brockovich of this whole thing. She's the one that really went down and figured it all out and brought it into the fore, brought these, incredible motions that just absolutely shocked the world. And it's brought the case, it's to a grinding halt. So I was talking with her, and basically they only get 20 minutes. Like, all the defendants get 20 minutes. So they're going to have, I guess, one lawyer to just do it for everybody, I suppose. And Fannie will, of course, have her 20 minutes, but the majority of this issue is going to be on the written briefs. And then the Court of Appeals is set to decide. I did a stream about this on my channel a couple of months ago. I looked at who the judges are on the Court of Appeals, and every one of them comes from I think a particularly red part of the state of Georgia. So I don't know that if I had to bet right now, I'd say Willis is going to lose at the Court of Appeals.
It's going to be live streamed, correct?
Yeah,
Phil?
it'll be live streamed.
Awesome. It's in December. December
might break. I mean, it might be overloaded, but it's supposed to be live streamed, and I think it's December 5th. But I could be wrong, so people can look that up. I don't off the top of my head, but I think it's like December 5th.
American Dreamer says, Viva, you have weird trolls. These are not my trolls. These are Hunley's trolls.
No. You brought them
I don't have trolls. So it's going to be December after the election. So we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, originally it was docketed for October, and for some reason it got bumped to, probably for that reason, David, it probably was bumped to December to be after the election. So one of two things is going to happen. Catman's asking, is this Thug or Trump? I'm talking about Trump right now. We can talk about Thug if you don't want, but Trump is either going to be very busy with the transition, or he's going to be, whatever he would be if he loses the election. So I think that there's going to be a lot of interest either go away, or it's going to be really, really heightened on this case, because, this is a state case. And if he's an incumbent president, he can't pardon himself from a state case. But
and on the issue of the pardon, Biden can't pardon him either. Biden can pardon him on the federal cases. And then the question would be, if Biden does exercise a pardon on the federal cases by whenever, what would the state AGs or prosecutors do if there is a federal pardon?
Yeah, I guess it's up to them. But the federal pardon would not impact the state cases. Now, the ruling on presidential immunity perhaps could, and maybe it should, with respect to the case in New York, because I think some of the evidence that was used in that case had to do with some official acts that he took as president. So there's appellate issues big time there. And I think there's going to be some issues here, because a lot of what Trump was doing that she indicted him for, he was a sitting president, and he was making claims about the inadequacies of the election. I'll just leave it at that. And you could make the argument, I think it's a good argument, that any president has a responsibility to ensure the reliability of federal elections. So at the same time, it does serve his personal interest as a candidate. It also could be one of those things where it also falls under official actions of a sitting president. So,
well, you brought up New York. I definitely am interested in what you guys think. Mershon delayed the sentencing from July into September now. Do you see that happening? Will Trump be let out in handcuffs, or is it going to get delayed again?
Phil, who I've been picking a fight with someone. His name is, no, he's a politician. I just have to get his name. Who made a prediction that Trump is going to jail, and I said I think that's a very bad prediction. Hold on, let me see who it was.
Well, Mark's been saying it.
McCarthy. You're predicting a jail sentence that'll be suspended, presumably.
Well, I think I'm predicting a jail sentence that has a really good chance of getting an appeal bond, or and look, I hope I'm wrong. The judge could suspend a sentence, or he could do almost nothing. But
he could vacate the conviction, because they're going to have to send it back, determine what were presidential acts, what were not.
But do you think Mershon, with all the crazy rulings he's made,
I'm looking Polymarket doesn't have this as an option. If it did, I'd put some money on it. I think it's probably as unlikely as going right to jail. Andy McCarthy is the guy that I don't think he knows who I am, but
Mark Robert thinks he's going to get arrested. I mean, it's a power play, and Republicans tend to underestimate how far the Democrats will push their agenda.
But there's, I mean, I appreciate that. I think there's also just limits to not common sense because they don't have any. There's limits to practicality. There's limits to utility. There's no way that they can say you're going to jail now. It'll be however many months after the failed assassination. It'll be in light of the immunity ruling, which didn't just say, you have to have the test for whether or not this was official presidential conduct on its own.
That if the judge says lock him up and it's a sentence, how can that?
No, but I know he can say that, but it becomes difficult for him to say that plausibly in the face of the decision. He might be able to say prima facie these are not presidential acts, but then you deal with the evidentiary rule, which is you can't rely on evidence.
I'm saying is, who cares if he gets that nice shot of Trump in an orange jumpsuit, even for 10 minutes? What does that do for Mershon?
Well, it doesn't matter what it does for Mershon. What does it do for Trump? So the theory is, and I'm going to channel a bit of Barnes, if the goal is to do something that hurts Trump, that doesn't hurt Trump. And so that actually helps Trump. So he's going to be doing something that is unlawful, that is totally judicially unsupported, that's going to be politically counterproductive to what he wants. I mean, why would he do it? Just because
it's for him. He's a hero. It's kind of like, these people who come up with these bullshit things. What is it? The LA mayor has decided she's going to ban cars for the Olympics coming up, right? Well, does she have any authority? She's going to get sued by Uber and everybody else. But it doesn't matter because she can say, I did my part. So some of this stuff, you got to admit, is a power play. This judge is already legendary in his quarters because he's sentenced, he found Trump guilty in his courtroom. Trump was found guilty in his courtroom. He's a hero to these people. They don't care.
Hunley, I got a reason. Joe, you're not pushing me up, but I got to back out in less than 2 minutes. But I'll make my prediction here. You all think that Mershon is looking for a corrupt way to lock Trump up, and I think he's looking for a corrupt way to get out of the mess that he's in. He knows that he's in a mess. They got their conviction. They ran around with the header, convicted felon, and now he understands he's got to get the hell out of that because of the rulings he's made, and he's going to blame the Supreme Court for their ruling, saying my hands are now tied. I've got to push this back. We've got to go do a test, determine if this is presidential. It's not my doing. It's those extreme judges on the Supreme Court. Blame them, but that's what I have to do in law. That's my prediction.
Okay, Judge, I hope you're right. In your tunnel. And do you think that Mershon is worried about anything happening from your view from the tunnel?
I think I walked in literally in the middle. I heard what Viva just said. I was talking about this yesterday as whether I think Mershon is going to sentence him and what he's going to do here. My gut is to start where Viva's at, which is I think that he got what he wanted for the most part, and he knows that he's treading on thin ice. You can tell that because otherwise he wouldn't have written on July 2nd if necessary. Like, why would he write that unless he's trying to signal that he has some concerns about the legal legitimacy of the convictions in the context of the Supreme Court immunity decision?
What's thin ice, though? Thin ice means he's like in peril.
Thin ice as far as looking like an idiot, because he looks like an idiot if, in fact, this. I think he realizes that if the Supreme Court ends up saying, yeah, he was immune or you did this wrong. I mean, one of the things that Todd Blanche points out in his letter is that even if you are internally reaching a decision that immunity doesn't apply here, under the Supreme Court, we have a legal right to get appeal heard, an interlocutory appeal, which for those who are watching may not know what that means. It means the trial, that if it was pre-trial, the trial would get put on hold until such time as an appellate court would hear the appeal. So if your bosses would come to a determination you're wrong, which the first part would never come to determination that Mershon is wrong on this, but the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals might. If your bosses come to that conclusion that you're wrong, you have to go through that process before you can try us. Now he's going to go and start imposing sentence at this juncture when he knows that if this was pre-trial, he wouldn't have the jurisdiction to do this. So that I think that he recognizes that to actually start imposing a sentence, which, let's face it, the sentence would not be in a prison cell. It would be, if anything, saying that he's on house arrest in Mar-a-Lago. What are you going to do?
Which would mean he can't go around doing rallies, could he?
Right.
And number two, look at
how
so what?
But look at how blatantly that's interfering with with the actual election that's affecting 300 million people.
And you think he cares?
He doesn't care.
I'll
Don't give him too much
now,
credit. The man's a terrorist. He doesn't care.
I think he cares
He's a
about
legal
having.
terrorist.
I think he cares about having the thin veneer of respectability that is the plausibility. What?
He's a hero to a side. Also, keep this in mind because you mentioned the Supreme Court, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the same Supreme Court that we have Joe Biden and Kamala saying, yeah, we need to break up. We need to remodify. So they could just use this leverage of saying, look at that. Yeah, that infiltrated right-wing crazy-ass Supreme Court. Of course we went against justice.
Hold on. Before I leave, Joe, are you in the Jewish tunnels?
This is my background. I had the Trump background going on for a while here.
Because it's either the Jew tunnels under New York or it's like the tunnels from Tremors. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie, but
okay. So there's a whole thing that I call people in my locals diggers. So they're always joking that they're in tunnels. So that's what got me started on the notion of the tunnels. And then there was the whole New York Jews in tunnels things, which came out afterwards. So that just made this background.
That's hilarious.
Perfect. Yeah.
I got to check out, and I hate to be rude, but I'm sticking to my schedule 12:30 daily on Rumble. But gentlemen,
there you go.
We'll see you soon. Have a good one.
Nice subtle plug there. That was very, very good. I like that there.
Yes, he should.
Yeah, no, that was good. No, but I'll ask you, gentlemen. I'll ask you this: if you think that Mershon is so dead set on sentencing him, why do you think he waited? Why not just do it on July 18th, like initially, or July 11th, when it was initially proposed?
Well, the short answer is, well, both sides. Well, the prosecutor's office agreed to it, so that had a lot to do with it. And the other thing is when you're in the, you're a month or 2 months out, month and a half out from the election, whatever, and you've got an opportunity to bring his, the 37 felony convictions or whatever back into the news cycle. There's a political calculation there, right? So they want to get his felony charges back in the news cycle because it's right on the eve of the election. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
This is a big question. Is this the same one who sentenced the Trump CEO?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They steered all the Trump-related cases to the same judge who's not even a regular judge in that court.
And I want to point out to everyone, this is much less of a legal analysis than it is political analysis about the law, because we're all just speculating about what individual is thinking in his head. There's no legal precedent for us to fall back on because this immunity decision is so brand spanking new and how it's going to be applied by an individual court who's already found 34 verdicts, not convictions. He's not a convict. So I want to make that 100% correct, clear to everyone. The jury has no power to issue a conviction. They only have a power to issue a verdict upon which a judge has the right to issue a conviction or to reject a conviction. So whenever you hear anyone on the left claiming he's convicted, that's an outright, that's just showing their incompetence.
And it's not even a final conviction. Even after the judge enters a judgment of conviction and sentences, it's not even a final conviction until the first round of appeals is concluded.
But my point is, it's an inappropriate term that's intentionally been thrown around 100%. By the left over and over and over again. Alina Habba is much better at refuting that type of thing than Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche seems much less about the PR. He's much more about being a lawyer than he is about the PR element that relates to this case from what we've seen so far. I think so that's why there's no way for a lawyer to be able to give you specific insight as to what Mershon is thinking or what's going to direct him, because we're in brand new territory. It's fresh snow. It's no one's ever applied before. He's going to be the first one other than Judge Chutkan putting things on hold, and she's putting on hold because the DOJ said we're not sure what to do with this yet. And that's part of what Todd Blanche put in his letter, saying the DOJ doesn't even know what to do. The only one who claims to know what they're supposed to what to do is the Attorney of New York, and they spent the last year and a half not clearly being wrong and saying that there's no such thing as immunity. So how on earth can you trust them that they figure this whole thing out in a couple of weeks when the DOJ is calling an outside specialist to try and figure out how to interpret and properly apply this Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court left as many questions unanswered. Like, how do you distinguish between conduct that's completely presidential action versus what's private action? But then what about these things that are like mixed, that could be both? If you're the sitting president and you're making claims about the the election not being done correctly, wherever, that could be both, right? It could be, and so what's a court supposed to do with that? The Supreme Court didn't say. And by the way, what happens if the president raises these issues? Does that mean the burden shifts to the state to disprove the claim? Or if not, what is the burden on the party making the claim of immunity? Do you have to prove it by preponderance of the evidence, clear and convincing evidence, beyond a reasonable doubt in the criminal? What do you have to prove? I mean, these are all questions that nobody knows the answer to.
I agree more strongly with the latter part of what you're saying, and that latter part is very critical than the former part. I do think that they sort of gave guidelines as to when something has carte blanche immunity versus when it has that quasi immunity. But so I think they did give some direction there, enough for you to start look at, let's say, each of these, each act in the, let's say, the DC case, and say, okay, over here, is this something that has carte blanche, or is something that does not have carte blanche? And because they gave examples as to when it would apply, and when as to when there would be that full immunity versus that quasi immunity. So I think you can use those examples to glean out some sort of direction. But you are correct, and Phil is completely correct on something that I actually haven't pointed out sufficiently to my audience, and that is that these yardsticks, as far as how high, who the burden is on, and how the burden is supposed to go, and how it's supposed to operate once we are in this quasi area, is complete. I think they intentionally left it to the court for the lower levels to start sorting out how they're going to interpret the law, and then they'll see how they do, which is what the Supreme Court, I think, is supposed to do. They're supposed to say, okay, you make your decisions, and we'll tell you whether or not we think you did a good job.
It's back and forth between the trial court, Supreme Court, trial court. Oh, you screwed that one up, but you got this part right. So fully, it's like, if you look at all the big cases, the big landmark decisions, let's just say, all right, so we've talked in my show about this case in Fulton County with Fonnie Willis and Atlanta rapper Young Thug, and there's been this big controversy about what we call Brady material, it's a case called Brady versus Maryland, and it's something we all studied in law school, and it has to do with prosecutors handing over exculpatory material. But exactly what their duties were in that regard wasn't fully fleshed out until other cases came along. And we're going to see the same thing here on immunity, where we get the general gist of it, and then we're going to have to wait another 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years to figure out exactly what the scope is and how courts are supposed to work with it.
By the way, I just got to interject. If you're curious about Brady, see the Alec Baldwin trial.
If you want to see how it's the opposite of that, and how it's sometimes not enforced, check out my channel, where we've been talking about prosecutors getting a pass for things way worse than what would have happened, or what did happen in the Baldwin matter, because some judges are just apparently not willing to enforce the rule on prosecutors and do the right thing.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the judge's background and things of that sort. Because
politics.
Joe, you were attending the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and there was very serious questions about at least one of the jurors, and the judge was like, "Yeah, no, nothing to see here."
Well, actually, what the judge did was the judge conducted an inquiry of that where he put the juror on the stand. Judge Allison Nathan is the one who presided over that case. And right before she was raised up to the Second Circuit. She happens to be a member of the LGBT community, and when you see her, you would guess as much. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a judge, she was fair, impartial, insightful. She was her decisions, 9 out of 10 decisions she made, she came to the same conclusion that I would have come to. Sometimes favoring Ghislaine, sometimes against. She's a phenomenal judge. I was very impressed with her work on that case, and she was so respectful to the attorneys as well, while maintaining strict control of her courtroom. She was a pleasure to watch. And it goes to show that a lot of people we hear, especially on my side of the aisle, we hear a lot about people complaining, DEI hire. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know if that played her intersectionality played a role, but that woman is both brilliant, and the one case I saw her operate was an exceptional judge.
Joe,
So,
that's the problem. No, that's the whole problem with the EI hires, is that you could have a stellar candidate who happens to be stellar and just happens to be LGBT, or just happens to be black, or just happens to be the other. But as soon as you run a DEI policy through, then people are always suspecting, oh, is this our token candidate for whatever?
right.
And it harms the same people it's supposedly helping.
Like what happened with Clarence Thomas. He was very upset that he was looked at as quote unquote, one of the first DEI hires, when in fact he very much merited his position on the Supreme Court. Someone actually asked me whether I saw someone ask whether I commented on Comey's daughter's prosecution performance. I did comment on that. Those of you who are curious about it, so it was James Comey's daughter is the one who was the lead prosecutor for the DOJ. And what I'll tell you is this: she happens to be a brilliant attorney, and you saw it and she did one of the best redirects I've ever seen any attorney do. No. And they at the same time, it was very evident that the prosecution was dead set on trying to protect any names on that list, on that airplane, the infamous flight logs. They were so dead set on it that Judge Nathan actually yelled at the prosecution team for blocking out all the names on the list when they really should have only been blocking out the names of anyone who was a minor girl who was taken on those flights. All the other names were supposed to be exposed, and she yelled at them and made them redo the evidence so the flight logs could be viewed in the gallery by those of us who were there, which is why we were all able to see it. That's part of the way. That's part of that's one of the many decisions that Judge Nathan made, which I thought was a phenomenal decision. But so you saw how Comey can be really great at what she's doing, and yet at the same time really political, because she was very clearly trying to keep Bill Clinton's name out of it. His name was all over those flight logs, not forever going down to infamous Epstein Island, but for flights to Southeast Asia, which a lot of people speculate that in Southeast Asia that you have a lot of freedom into your engaging whatever appetites you have. And that's speculation. It could be true. It may not be true. I don't know. All I know is that he did fly around, or he flew all around Southeast Asia, like Thailand and all these other different countries where rules are very relaxed. And I didn't even know that that's where people go to engage in that until the trial. And people were like, oh yeah, that's why there's all the speculation about Bill Clinton. But as opposed to Trump, who took the flights, basically, he was a next door neighbor living in Palm Beach, next door to Epstein, and all of his flights were basically like using the Epstein plane as a hitchhiker, where every time it was from Florida to his home in New Jersey, and then back from Jersey to Florida, and it was just like, it was almost like he was using the plane like it was his own personal
plane
Uber.
pulling.
It was like an Uber for him, like
or
it's like,
pulling.
Oh, okay. And it's like, okay, I know you were, we're friendly with each other. Do you mind if I use a plane? Oh, okay, fine. So this went on to book a flight, and I could just hop on your flight over here. It's much more convenient and faster. So that's how he used it. And he did use it, I think half a dozen times, but it was always that flight route and never anywhere else. So,
Joe, it's like rich people carpooling.
Yeah.
It's plane pulling. It's like, oh yeah, well, we'll take my plane this time.
Who wants to drive to the British Virgin Islands this weekend? It's like you and I trying to decide who's going to drive to lunch, right?
Exactly. I mean, these are extreme first world problems.
Yeah, which if you think about it, it makes sense. Like, this guy is someone they have a plane. Like, why would you not use it? It's like, if you don't, and if you're Epstein, you're like, oh, I'm able to rub shoulders with Donald Trump, who's been a celebrity for 40 years. So, if I can ingratiate myself and widen my circle that way, it's almost like, one of the things about this is that when people think of it as like, when you're a celebrity, you're handpicking of more vision or understanding as to what people are about. I think that to a lot of these celebrities, when you become someone who's more famous, so you too are like sort of like surprised when you get to rub shoulders with someone that everyone else has heard of, and they're sort of thinking the same thing about you. There's a story with Joe Montana in the Super Bowl, 1981, the final drive that he made against the Bengals with a minute and a half left of the game. He gets the ball on the down by 4 points, and that when he got in the huddle, and everyone was like, for what became a legendary drive that cemented his Hall of Fame status, the first thing he said in the audience to the huddle to his teammates reportedly was, he pointed to the crowd and goes, "Hey, look, there's John Candy." where it's like he was like awestruck by like, there's a celebrity in the crowd. This guy's about to lead a drive, and that's how he sort of calmed everyone down. And the point that I took from that is, to them it's like, oh wow, that's really cool. I get to see John Candy, and John Candy would probably like, if he saw him on the street, be like, holy hell, that's Joe Montana, because you're both.
Everybody's a fan of somebody.
Yeah, everyone's a fan, and that's why for Trump, he's probably like, oh yeah, everyone's been talking about Epstein. I'd like to meet him, and Epstein's like, holy hell, that's Donald Trump. So you sort of become friendly on that basis. It doesn't really imply that you're having sleepovers in each other's house the way people are specifically saying. I didn't mean to draw us over into this whole thing. You asked me about that question.
Well, speaking of fans, I'll tell you, I'm a fan of Eric and Joe, but as much as I am a fan, I've got a jet, so I got to take off myself. And so the question, Joe, for you is, are you going to be able to handle Eric one-on-one until maybe somebody else comes in to tap out?
Oh yeah, he and I. Are you kidding me? We're having slumber parties all the time.
No, in the gold room behind you. See, Joe put the background up to match the Epstein and Trump veneer.
I was waiting on to go back and play that piano back there.
The tunnel is more appropriate on my end.
I hope everybody in Laid Back Lawland has a great weekend, and you guys do too. And we'll have to catch up next time.
All right.
Yep.
So,
all right. Take care, Phil. Good seeing you,
sir. All right. Okay, now we got rid of that guy. So
finally, Jesus.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into another story. Some of these I think would just be fun to rail about, but J.K. Rowling, Elon Musk, named in a cyberbullying lawsuit filed by Algerian boxer Amin Khalif after Olympic win. How is this person going to have to go to each country and sue? I'm asking you, Joe, superior lawyer, exactly how is this Olympian going to sue all these people, or do they sue in their own jurisdictions? How does this work?
I'm not. Does the case say where it was filed? It is. You're asking the right question.
Filed to French authorities.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that means. Why would France have authority over Elon Musk? I don't know what
exactly.
That means. Similarly, there was a threat that came out from the Brits about the online bullying, where they were like,
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that one. Yeah, I wanted to talk this one.
But it's pretty much this the same animal, which is the question is, on what basis are you able to actually get someone in there and hail them before you come to court? And
this one I love. Yes. The police commissioner threatens to extradite and jail U.S. citizens over online posts. We'll come after you. Mm-hmm. Oh, please. Mm-hmm. I hope 50,000 people mock the shit out of this person.
So this one I addressed online. I didn't address the Imani Khalif story. I haven't really broken that one down. So this one I have a little bit more familiarity with. Those who are unfamiliar, those who are from America, I basically said, I don't care what's happening in Britain because, well, I'm an American. Why should I care about that? And they should care about us, but we don't have to care about what's going on in their politics. So there was an incident that happened in England where these three young girls have been attacked, and they had and killed, and they were killed by someone who and the person who was arrested for the attack was someone who had a very non-British sounding name, and there was all this speculation that he was an illegal alien online, and supposedly he was actually a Brit who was born to Rwandan parents.
He was born in Wales, and he was a citizen, I believe. And you're talking about the controversy because I heard Andrew Pierce Morgan challenging Andrew Tate, whom I guess Jeremy Corbyn blamed for spreading that rumor. I think he stated that it was an illegal fresh off the boat who did this crime.
Yes. Yeah. And part of the problem I found when I was just trying to look into this story, because I'm an American. I didn't care about this story until all of a sudden I saw that headline that they're going to come after Americans. I was just like, all right, now I need to know more about this story and why there's all these riots going on in the UK. But the result of various speculation that it was an illegal alien purportedly is what sparked all this backlash against new admittance into Great Britain, and there was some clashes. The clashes I saw actually were Muslims going after Brits. That when I at that point I saw it, but I can't tell you who instigated it. And it probably depends on which riot you're at or whatever. But they all seem to take place, or at least no, I shouldn't say all. A couple of them certainly seem to take place near various Muslim places of worship. I think there's actually probably been relatively equal give and take, but it's impossible to actually find out truth in this world because you got the left-leaning media who's basically portraying as if this is a whole bunch of racists who are going after Muslims.
Sure.
And
which, by the way, it's not helpful.
Into it.
It's not helpful. Get your facts straight. I mean, in fairness, if this was a British citizen and you make that kind of a claim, you should walk it back. And I was listening to him being confronted by Piers Morgan, and honestly, Andrew Tate was a horrible equivocator and disgusting because he just wouldn't. He goes, "Oh, I got the wrong stabber." Oh, and he's just going on with it, but he's not actually saying, "Yeah, I got that wrong, but there's other problems." You should try to get your facts straight, in my opinion, because there are very real problems out there. And then when you falsely report one, then you give leverage to the other side to say, look, they lied there, so they're lying everywhere else, and they don't even take it back.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So was there some false reporting that helped stoke up some resentment and some of the or at least played a role in stoking up some of these riots? Probably. I don't know that to be true, but it's likely true, and that's certainly what the left is claiming there. They have a leftist government in power there in Great Britain, and the reaction of the left was typical leftist reactions. Whenever they're backed into a corner, they get ridiculously tyrannical. I mean, that's just what the left does. It's like, okay, look, you're not bending the knee to us. Now it's time for us to come out in full force. And I pulled up a few videos of them barging into homes, sawing through doors, barreling into homes, and arresting various Brits for Facebook posts. I mean, stuff that would shock us because they don't have the level of freedom of speech that we have here in America that we're accustomed to as being the standard. They don't have what we call the Brandenburg Standard, which says that incitement is something that is only a crime if there's a proximal time and location, meaning that your words will inspire someone to engage in criminal activity near and that activity is near in both time and location. So that
and specificity too, right? Like
correct.
If you just say kill all the blanks, it's kind of a vague thing. But if you say
kill that guy,
kill Joe,
right?
Then now it's a call to action. Is that a fair approximation?
Right. And to be fair, if someone were to talk about a random Joe that way, not me, I assume you picked the name Joe just because people say, "Oh, there goes another Joe." Not
Josephina.
Right. Right. But if someone were to say kill Joe, and none of the people he's talking to are anywhere in vicinity of that particular Joe, in that case it would not be incitement, it would be freedom of speech. So now the question comes so then after they started arresting Brits, that wasn't enough. Then they started making statements claiming, don't think that just because you're outside the UK you're going to be insulated, because we're going to extradite you and bring you in here and hail you before a British court. I saw one thing, I can share a clip with you, this guy saying, you've been found guilty of incitement with your racist comments that they don't belong here, and accordingly I'm sentencing you to 2 years in jail. And you're just like, you're freaking what? This is a Western country.
Count Dankula, dude, this is years old. They were doing this crap. Count Dankula was arrested, I think ultimately convicted and fined or something came out of it because he was teaching his dog to do a World War II salute.
To do the old cigarillo. So but so then the question is, okay, so now we have this conflict of laws between Great Britain and UK. So can I be held to the UK can I be extradited from US to UK? Because there is an extradition treaty between the two countries. So if I doing something that's thoroughly legal here in America, but to do it in Great Britain would be a crime, can I actually will the US say, oh, okay, we'll allow you to extradite to your country to go after this person? So when I'm addressing this, I'll tell you this: I'm talking to you as if I'm sitting with you at a bar, and what I would tell a friend at a bar, this is not what we call legal advice. So I'll tell you, if I was sitting with you in a bar and someone asked me this question, I'd be like, don't worry about it. Stop worrying about it.
Well,
It's
this is ludicrous because, okay, if, for example, I say mouth off against the commissioner directly, right? And say the most hateful things in the world.
Yeah.
But I do it here where it is legal. That's very different. Now, if I went to England and mouthed off, then I would be within his grasp, right? Because I did it in the jurisdiction that it was illegal. It doesn't matter that I'm an American or not. I still screwed up. I committed a crime in their soil. But over here, screw you.
Yeah. And you know, and to make your point, you're making a great point. That just because you're American privilege, which is the most fascinating and brilliant and amazing privilege you have if you are an American in countless ways that we forget about and take for granted because we're so used to it. But that American privilege dies when you go into another country, as we saw an American get caned out in the Far East for, you know, and for breaking their laws, where he spray painted something. This is going back 30 years now. And he was literally caned because that's the punishment they impose, I think, in, you know, North Korea or wherever it was.
Singapore does a lot of caning.
Yeah, maybe it was Singapore.
They also have executions for drug dealing. No, they do not play. I think it might be Singapore.
Yeah, your privilege die. Your American privilege and those protections die the moment you leave this country. It's something Americans tend to forget about. That's why we're infamous or notorious for you know, walking around acting very American, even when we're not in America, and outraging the locals that way. But so yeah, if you are in England, in that case, you certainly have to follow British law. Otherwise, you will be subjected to British law. But the question is, now you're here in Virginia, wherever you're located, and you know, can because there's this extradition treaty, will America say, oh, okay, well, he broke British law, we're going to let, you know, Britain handle it? So the exception to that is when it comes to something that is the extradition treaty policy between America and Great Britain, is it doesn't apply when it's something political. And I think that there's a very, very the most reasoned position is that this type of crime is political. So a normal government, a normal American government would tell the UK, just go away, stop even asking and making stupid statements because you're issuing threats that we're never going to help you carry out. That's what a normal government would do in 98 out of 100 scenarios. If the British government was so bold as to say, we want to get Eric Hunley for his statements that were violating our law because he incited this riot over here. And what I'll tell you, or it doesn't be Eric Hunley, it could be anyone who's watching this podcast, obviously, that 98 out of 100 times, I'll tell you that the government would say, go jump in a lake. The problem that we have here is that we are dealing with a pretty stupid government that's in power right now. So that's why I say to you, don't worry about it. Like, if I was talking to you in a bar, I'd say, don't worry about it. But God forbid, if you're the guy who said something that the British government goes after you, at the very least, I can foresee that you might end up engaging in some serious legal bills, because America might start thinking about, well, we don't like this guy. He's sitting on the right side. He's a hardcore, fascist Trump supporter, and he broke the law. So let him prove that he doesn't have to get extradited over to Great Britain. And who the hell wants to deal with that battle over a stupid online tweet? So in that sense,
There is a case, though, where the lines can get really blurry, and this super chat came in after I was thinking of it. Like, let's say I go to the British Embassy, and while I'm there, I see a beautiful vase, and I'm like, you know what? And I lift it, and I take it home. Now I've actually committed a crime on British soil, because the British Embassy is technically UK soil. And they may have a case in that regard.
So to answer, well, to make the point here, what happens if you tweet here in Virginia, and now after you tweet, you go to Great Britain? So it's the same thing, right? So if they issue a warrant for your arrest, well, in that case, in theory, you can be theoretically facing criminal charges. So that's another issue that people who certainly think they may ultimately want to visit the UK someday may want to consider. I don't think the UK is actually going to try coming after any Americans, because they would look so impotent and weak.
I think it's happened, though. I think it's happened like in Canada. I think Tommy Robinson got snared when he went into Canada.
Yeah, see, left his government. There you go. leftist government is like, oh, okay. And that's why I'm saying to you, do I think you would have a legal problem? Would I tell you if we're sitting in a bar, it's totally okay and don't worry about it? Yeah, I'd say, like, don't worry about it. But as a lawyer, if someone comes to me for legal advice, I'd be like, well, I can see you having some sort of problems if you ever leave America. And who the hell needs to have that sort of hassle? So I'd avoid it. That's the legal advice I would give, because lawyers are notoriously cautious, and they certainly don't want to even come back to me later on and saying, Joe said it was okay, and that's why now I'm in this hot waters. That's what I'm saying to you. It technically could be a problem for you, but if I was sitting in a bar with a friend, I'd be like, yeah, don't worry about it. So that's where I'm at on this.
That's Ari brought up a good point. Midnight Express was a great movie about that.
Oh, the bounty hunters. The Bounty Hunter, that was with Charles Grodin, right? And
no, I don't think so. Midnight Express, I thought it was Sean Penn and the Turkish drug dealing.
Was that? I thought it was a comedy.
Oh no! Oh no!
Was there a comedy with Charles Grodin where there was a bounty hunter bringing some annoying guy? I think it was Alan Arkin and Charles Grodin, and he was
no. It's Midnight Express.
Country. It's definitely something Express.
No, it's a Billy Hayes 77 memoir.
Midnight Run is what I was thinking of.
Yes, correct. Oliver Stone did the movie, and it had John Hurt, Randy Quaid, Brad Davis.
Ari left us all confused. You left us all confused.
Yes, you did. Well, Ari did bring up a story earlier that would be fun to talk about, because we all, see if I have the link in here. Come on now. I don't know if you saw that our favorite journalist, if you want to call her that, from the Washington Post, Taylor Lorenz, is getting caught up in some lies, potentially.
No way. Taylor, say it ain't so.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. I know you're a major fan, Joe, and we all are. We like our trust fund children to be super successful.
I got my Swiftie hat, my Chiefs jersey. I'm ready to go.
She made the mistake of pointing at the wrong person. Apparently, she had a post of her with Joe Biden, or next to Joe Biden or something, and typed war criminal on it. And she got called out by the New York Post's John Levine, who revealed this Instagram post. See, her, Joe Biden, war criminal. Sad. Okay. Sorry, I need to switch to the chat. This is the what was shared out. This is John Levine of the New York Times, called Biden a war criminal. There's a lot of people who probably would agree with that. Yeah. Hey, Kurt, we're talking about our favorite columnist, Taylor Lorenz, and the snag that she's in right now.
Hello, how is everyone doing?
How you doing, Kurt?
I'm in good spirits, thank you.
I'm glad.
Good. All right, so she went ahead and wrote back to this critic from New York Times saying, "Y'all will fall for any dumbass edit someone makes." Facts. Then they fact-checked her, and NPR obtained a screen grab of her actual post, which contained the exact caption. So her response, like any scurrilous individual, is she removed a picture and suddenly uploaded it again with those words gone. So the bottom line with all this, and it's wonderful, is that the senior editors are now reviewing this. So I don't know if anything will happen, because I feel like she has done many, many more obnoxious, lying things out there and seems to slither on through no matter what. But maybe time is short for Taylor Lorenz and her career at the Washington Post. Salty Vet Dad, everybody in Concord, Massachusetts should start tweeting and remind the Redcoats what happened last time, or send over the Constitution. Okay. Kurt, this is a follow-up with the police commissioner in UK saying that he was going to extradite Americans for making mean comments and bring them to the UK to be prosecuted.
That would be difficult on a number of levels.
So walk us through all the legal difficulties that England would have.
Well, first and foremost would be the problem that if you presuming that we're an American citizen and we're doing it inside the United States, we're doing it under our freedom of speech. And the fact that that speech can travel outside our borders is neither here nor there. So, first of all, there's jurisdiction problems because how did it happen within the UK? Second of all, even if it did, the United States courts wouldn't enforce it. There's parallel law on this as it relates sometimes to contracts and foreign contracts and things like that, where U.S. courts will not enforce certain provisions because it's an anathema to our law. And this is not a uniquely United States concept. Other countries do the same thing. So it's like, yeah, we're not going to enforce that foreign judgment because it is so foreign to us and our law that it's like, yeah, no. So no on just every possible level.
What about, and Joe brought this up too, what about Joe mouthed off against the police commissioner, said all kinds of nasty things, and then went on a vacation to England the following week?
Well, if you're already in the UK, then that becomes more interesting because you're there.
No, but he did it while he wasn't in the UK.
Yeah.
And then he
but now you're inside their territory. So now they're going to arrest you while you're there. And now that's a diplomatic fight, I suppose. But as I covered on my channel recently, there was a US-Russian dual national who just got convicted and sentenced to 15 years in Russian prison for treason for donating, I think it was $54 to a Ukrainian non-for-profit. So, you know, when you're in other people's countries, their laws govern. As we remember from the Singapore caning incident from way back when, for example.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like,
yeah. So yeah, so when you're in their territory, their rules kind of apply. So yeah, you might want to stay in the U.S. The U.S. is a lovely country; it's got wonderful, great things,
and a big country,
and a big country. The entirety of the UK is about the size of Oregon. So
actually,
we got 49 more states beyond that,
and less significant.
That does bring up another question, though, because we're talking about country to country, Kurt and Joe. But what about state to state? Like I'm mouthing off
state to state, no papers. Sorry,
no, no.
I was doing a Hunt for Red October thing right there. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's say I'm just mouthing off or doing whatever, and I live in Virginia, and somebody in New Mexico. You know, kind of like the question of when the prosecutor is threatening me with a search warrant with my coverage over Alec Baldwin. I'm in Virginia, she's in New Mexico. Isn't there even a bit of a strain there, just state to state within the U.S.?
Yeah, sure, certainly. And you see that, again, it comes down to jurisdiction with, if you're thinking about this in the context of defamation, for example, we'd be talking about the United States case of Caldera, dealing basically with, you know, having to take actions within the jurisdiction or within the territory, sufficient minimum contacts. We can go international shoe, go some old school on this shit. But yeah, basically you have the same problem. It's like fundamentally, first of all, you have to do something within their jurisdiction. If I'm in Virginia making statements in Virginia, it's like, what is your jurisdiction over me? Not much. So yeah,
you know, this issue came up when I was streaming the Colorado's hearing about Trump's 14th Amendment issue, and on day 2 or 3 of the trial, the judge looked into the camera and said, if you're streaming this for profit and you don't have the express written permission of this court, you are breaking the law. And please be aware that we intend to uphold that law. And I felt like she was talking, she did everything but say, you know, I'm talking to you, Joe. Apparently she was actually talking to she was talking to someone else, and she didn't seem aware of me, but it actually came up that the attorneys for the state saw that someone else had been streaming it. It was someone who had been a thorn in their side, and they called it to the judge's attention, and that's when she like stopped the trust. Like, everything stop right now, and she looks into the camera, and I was like, me? Is she talking to me? I don't even know. And then I was like, where would she have jurisdiction over me? How does she have the authority to tell me not to? And then I thought about on the other side, and I was like, technically I'm using a feed from inside her courtroom.
Yeah, that might do it. So if you're using the feed from the court itself, then you're using their resources. So presumably that is the jurisdiction.
Which is why I started
if you were relaying it, because I think, yeah, this is exactly what you and I did too. Like we dropped the internal feed, and then we just started watching CNN's feed or whatever, because it's like, well, you know, it's like, what's the difference? But if it makes a difference, if it makes a difference to you, I guess.
Right. I mean, but then I didn't like the audio as much on C-SPAN, which is why, well, I ended up borrowing some audio. I'm not going to say from where, because I don't know if she has jurisdiction over me.
Unknown places.
I wonder if a
Okay.
VPN could factor into that, though. Like if you're bouncing.
Yes.
from one
Welcome to our
one
sponsor,
location.
ExpressVPN. Yeah.
Hey, I'm open for that, but wouldn't that be a question too? Like if you're not actually reaching into the state directly or,
Sure.
or whatever, it
I
makes
actually,
me think,
I call my New York ethics bar. Like this, when attorneys have legal ethic questions, so the state bar provides for you, at least here in New York, they provide a hotline, and there's a rotating team of different attorneys who volunteer to answer ethical questions for you. And I asked them, I was like, am I doing something wrong by streaming this thing? When the judge looked in the camera and told me to stop, and I'm not in their jurisdiction. I never practiced there. I haven't been to a state in 40 years. And they told me, no, you don't have to worry about it. Like it's totally fine. Like she has no jurisdiction over you. That's what my so. And at the very least, if you're a new attorney, the reason this is a healthy thing to do at the very least is because it gives you an opportunity to at least claim after the fact that you didn't just go willy nilly, but you consulted with your ethic bar association and they told you it's fine. So how can I be held accountable? I did my due diligence to do research and ask a third party who's a neutral third party whether this was okay. And it's my own state bar ethics committee which is telling me this. So what do you want from me? And that's how you sort of cover your own ass in the sense of not being held accountable and subject potentially to discipline.
there's another question with the technology. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I was talking to Norm Pattis about this. And he actually had a judge agree that he could argue jury nullification on this particular case. And the reason was, and I'll try to describe it as best I can. I'll probably get some facts wrong, but essentially he had a client who had some very bad pictures that were sent to him. And those pictures he received, it hit his iPhone. His iPhone was set up with a photo stream and it got immediately synced to the cloud. And then the FBI came down and suddenly he was spreading CP across state lines. And Norm Patterson is saying this is a function of the technology that has nothing to do, there was no intent or et cetera. He could not help this, from happening. He didn't know it's happening, et cetera. And the judge agreed that he could argue jury nullification. Somehow, I guess the judge got pulled off the case though, and it got shut down. But
that doesn't sound like nullification. That just sounds like it's going to mens rea. It sounds like it's going to the knowledge or intent requirement to distribute. Also, as memory serves, and it's been a while, but I believe the photographs of certain minors has an exception for if you receive, I think it's less than like 3 photographs or something like that. There's an exception in the text of the law itself that it's like you can make an affirmative defense that, it wasn't intentional. Because Congress at least thought that far ahead. So there's something in the law itself.
I could be not describing it well. I do remember though specifically the syncing of the iCloud, which we all know whether we're on Android or whatever. If we have some sort of photo app and tie with the cloud, it's just automatic. You don't think about it; it's just there.
Well, then the question is also whether it's crossing state lines if it's in the cloud. Because the cloud, what people don't realize is the cloud is in the sky.
It's interstate commerce. It doesn't matter.
But it's not. How is it interstate? Because the cloud might be right directly.
Oh, you want to go to Wickard v. Filburn? Oh, you know the answer to that question.
It might be in the same state, in the cloud over you.
Substantial effects, man. Substantial impact.
In which case, if that's where it's being stored directly over you. So in that case, there's that cloud where you don't have to go to a filing cabinet anymore because now it can put it straight into the sky.
So Joe, you just sent me an expert explanation of cloud storage. Is that correct? Okay,
that's correct.
Let's learn.
Kamala will teach you.
Oh, good.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? It's no longer in a physical place.
Thank you. I deeply appreciate the clarification, Joe. Thank you very much.
It's still in a physical place. I hate to break it to there, but
Yeah, I know that
it's on a drive somewhere.
There's a great T-shirt that goes around that's saying, your cloud is another dude's server room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Technically, because that's all it is you're not storing in your server room, you're storing in another one somewhere else. But boy,
I share that so that people would realize what my source of information
It could be worse. I always thought that the politician who said the internet was a series of tubes got a bad rap. I'm like, I thought that was actually a pretty good metaphor. The internet's a series of tubes. I'm like, I could definitely get down with that. That works.
I'm worried
it's
that
not
if
the
you
worst.
put,
That was Al Gore, I think, who
But-
invented
No, I
it.
think it was someone else, but yeah.
But isn't Guam like really narrow? So if you put a lot of people, a lot of facilities there, I'm worried that it's gonna tip over, and and the whole thing will capsize if you
Maybe if you built really, really tall. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you could. I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and look at this. Phil's already gone, but I actually saw this from his shared tweet. We have a lot of judges out there who seem to just be drunk with power.
That's one of the best parts of the job.
Well, there you go. Well, this judge decided, and I get it that there's creative sentencing. I understand. I don't agree with some of it, but the whole, walk around with a sign or humiliate or whatever. But this one seems to be taking it too far. A Detroit judge has been removed from the bench after punishing a teen for falling asleep during a courtroom field trip. So a high school kid is visiting the judge in the courtroom, falls asleep, and the judge makes her wear handcuffs and jail clothes during this.
Wow.
It seems like a bit much.
Yeah.
Wow.
An admonition would be nice enough. It
Let's
would be
see
fine.
if we've got
but,
some video with this.
Is the 36th District Court for the City of Detroit. We do just about everything that happens in the City of Detroit. One thing you'll learn about my courtroom is that I am not a toy. I'm not to be played with. If I fall asleep in my courtroom one more time, I'm putting you in the back, understood? I'm going to go to sleep tonight while you're sitting in the juvenile detention facility.
okay.
Unbelievable.
Aggressive.
That is taking things a bit far.
Yeah. I think.
Anyway, I just had to share that because I saw that from Phil. But I mean, do judges have too much immunity? I feel like things like this. This is that's getting ludicrous.
Yeah. As opposed to politicians like Kamala who just look drunk, that is drunk with power, where you're basically determined to show that you're in my house here, and I'm going to actually make sure that you continually remember it. I'll tell you right now, I worry about that guy's kids, because that's reflective of a very abusive personality. That you're so insecure that someone's falling asleep in your courtroom on a stupid field trip, that you're going to sit there and just start and actually implement, traumatize them by making them feel like they're going to jail and putting prison clothes. What the hell? And it's not even the kid. I mean, the kid probably has a civil rights claim against.
That's what I was wondering, because isn't this false imprisonment? I mean, this seems ludicrous. Now, I understand. Okay, if the kids are acting up or they're being stupid or whatever else, you just say, get the F out of here. You can eject them. That seems to be fair. If a person is proven to be a nuisance or a distraction, you could 86 them, right? That wouldn't be a problem. You just say, I don't wish to have you here, please leave. But to lock them up, to actually handcuff them, does this person, I don't believe, committed a crime, is sleeping in a courtroom when you're not in trial, or even if you are, because I hear that some attorneys have done it, and the people are still found guilty and they get no recourse.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is twofold. First of all, judges typically have absolute immunity, so you can't sue them anyway. And even if they had qualified immunity, I don't know of any case that would be on point, because you're looking for the deprivation of rights and also for it to be clearly established. And because judges don't get sued for their official actions, I don't think there is any such case. Also, I don't think you can sue them in the first place. So I don't know that there is any remedy here. Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. Well, okay. The judge is removed from the bench over this. Great.
Yeah.
And that's a fabulous start. But I really think that there should be actual consequences. Like maybe the judge should spend the night in jail with handcuffs. It just doesn't seem like, you have, and maybe I'm weird, but I feel like when somebody abuses their power and they are in a position of authority to know better, especially, then I think that they have a higher liability, in my opinion, because they know the law. They are the resource, the expert behind the law.
Yeah, well, if they can find something, I'm open to possibilities, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So,
well,
yeah.
I would love to see judges, some of their immunity revoked. Now, I heard from Nate. I was talking to
The
him
other thing I
lately.
can think of is some sort of disciplinary action against the judge beyond being removed, to the extent you could bring a bar complaint to go potentially after his license, but that's all else I can think to do.
Yeah, it just seems completely crazy. Now, I believe Nate told me that you are covering America's Super Mayor as well now, and
I am. You're to the cause, heroin to the cause.
Well, that story is just blowing wide open now. Do you want to go into it? Because I saw there's even more here. The Illinois comptroller said no more money from the state. Tough shit. But then the police chief has been indicted by the FBI for bankruptcy violations. Her number 2 at bankruptcy. A lot of bankruptcy issues with these people, it seems. But now it appears that the police chief is flipping. Am I missing anything?
Nope, that sounds about right. We're off to a really good time. The only thing you're missing is the fact that it's Illinois, so it's par normal.
Ouch. What is it? Lenny Bruce said, Illinois is so corrupt, it's breathtaking, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, half of their recent governors are in prison. Like 4 out of the last 8 governors are in prison. So they do it differently over there. It's a race between Illinois and Louisiana to see who can become more corrupt. I swear.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, I guess, everybody's big question, because I think it has to happen before too long. When is she going to be wearing a matching pair of silver bracelets?
I think that day is coming. $8.5 million at least appears to have gone missing, plus potentially the budget itself for that year, which I believe someone said was like $20 million plus. And a lot of this money, which was spent on herself, and all the actions she took against people. So it sounds like a lot like obstruction, witness intimidation. Then there's also the employment law violations for failure to supervise, plus the conspiracy, plus there is embezzlements. What else can I throw in there on top of official corruption? And probably there's some forms that were filled out fraudulently. So probably a whole bunch of fraud, probably by mail. So throw in some mail fraud in there. She's going to have some good times or she used a computer, so that's wire fraud. So she has lots of fun times heading her way.
I was going to say also, wasn't there $6 million worth of checks printed but never actually sent out?
I might have missed that particular detail. It's just a lot to keep hold of.
Sorry, but what would that fall under? Would that also fall under fraud or whatever? Like you're taking.
Well, if the checks were printed but never used, I don't know if that's anything.
Well, you got to send them.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else? I mean, this person just seems to be off her rocker. We do have a competitor though for worst mayors in America. I got to be careful.
The white woman.
This is the white one from Louisiana. Yes, so we have to be careful.
See, I told you, it's a race constantly between Illinois and Louisiana, which is more corrupt. It's constant.
And here we go. Yes. Well, you have to admit, though, this is a nice progression, Kurt, because of late, it's been a lot of female teachers who really like to seemingly do things with boys, younger boys. This one seems to have climbed the ladder and is accused of doing the same thing that many teachers have been convicted of. She has only been charged of it, so she could be completely, utterly innocent. So we'll say allegedly, but this former mayor resigned her position to be arrested within a very short period of time for what they accused Trump of with E. Jean Carroll.
Right. She grabbed him by something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you're a teacher, you got all sorts of privileges. You can just walk up to a kid and grab him by the
the pointer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, the good thing about the corrupt mayors and corrupt officials is that it gives me plenty of content, forever. So that's nice.
This is true.
And sometimes they're held accountable, like the chief of police and that one officer from Uvalde were indicted for their conduct. That's only 398 additional officers that need to be charged, but it's a start.
What about the claim on that case, Kurt? Because I understand you covered it. Because it seems despicable about the chief and everything, but people were pushing back when I was commenting on it, saying that technically speaking, the chief was not responsible, that it was the I'm trying to think of it, like the person who does the violent stuff or whatever. It was turned over to the crisis person. I don't know the exact name. You probably know it. And that the chief would not be technically the one making calls. It would be the crisis commander or whatever the title is.
Indict them all and let God sort it out is basically my view on the thing. I don't care. I don't care if we have to charge the cops with loitering. I want to charge them all with something because they all stood around with their thumbs up their asses doing nothing. That's loitering. We'll start from there and we'll pick up the more aggressive charges along the way. But I want all these people to be named. I want their photographs. I want their name. I want their town so I can make a video about all of them and I can honor them all appropriately.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do want to point out another parallel, though, that came up on a show I was on where people were comparing the Butler cops. Specifically the one who,
I hope we were coming here. I was just about to ask. Go on.
The one who propped himself up, looked over the roof, had the rifle pointed out, fell down to the ground. People were comparing that cop to Uvalde, which I think is completely grossly unfair and unreasonable in many ways.
Ridiculous.
Because simply speaking, and I've now been to Butler Farm Show. I have seen the building. I have drone footage of it. I was just up there. Tell me how a cop is supposed to, when he's propped up by somebody underneath him into the air, using both hands to, do a pull up and look over, exactly how is he supposed to engage with the person on the roof with a rifle?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous ask of anyone. You want your kid to be the one to sit there getting into a shootout with basically his face exposed?
There were a lot more systemic problems on that situation than that one situation. The guy was spotted for 57 minutes or 56 minutes. He was spotted. And the people weren't at this place where they're supposed to be. The roof wasn't covered in the first place. There were a lot of problems. Uvalde is so frustrating.
And I want to point out before you get back to Uvalde for a second, just think about this for a second. No, about what you just said. Because you were going to go back to Uvalde. I just want to point this out. The reason they were not where they were supposed to be is because they were supposedly out looking for this guy. So this is what you're basically saying. We're going to set up a defensive posture out inside the perimeter so that we can look out at people who are a danger. And then when we see someone who might be a danger, we're going to leave that defensive posture and then just start randomly searching through the crowd for him rather than sending someone else to actually go.
Well, that's another set of people, Joe. The cops I'm talking about are the normal cops. You're talking about the snipers who were up in the room because it was too hot to be on the roof. And then the one had left, his ID didn't work. So the other one had to go downstairs to help him get in the door with the ID that's not working.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Fair enough. I'm sorry. Go back to Uvalde. I cut you off there, Kurt. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the thing about Uvalde is that there were cops there. I think there were something like 8 cops there, and they were there within something like 3 minutes. The average response time for a Category 1 call, even in like a major metropolitan area, is something like 8 minutes. So for a top level call, like the average response time is like 8 minutes. The cops were there within 3. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, after Columbine was 99, wasn't it? And this Uvalde was 22. So it's 23 years later. After Columbine, everyone learned that when it comes to like school shootings, you just go and you don't wait for the crisis team. You don't wait for the SWAT. Apparently, they sent for SWAT from Austin. I don't, whatever. But they defied like all the basic principles and stood around with their thumb up their asses. My personal favorite detail about the whole thing was when they were trying to gain entry to the classroom, and they're like, "Well, does anyone have a battering ram?" Apparently, the answer is no. It's like, let's go search for the keys. Let's go search for the keys to the door. You know what they failed to do?
Check if the door
They failed
was
to try
unlocked.
to. They failed to try to open the door because it was unlocked. Yeah, that's my personal favorite detail of the whole thing. They didn't even try to open the door.
Pathetic.
So between
Absolutely
that,
pathetic.
yeah, between that and the guy checking for the hand sanitizer and the people standing outside, actively preventing parents from going inside trying to rescue their children while they're a bunch of coward ass. There's how much can I curse? Because I can say a lot of things.
I mean, go
Okay,
ahead.
I will restrain myself. I said many profane things when I was covering the story yesterday on my own channel, but they're sitting around like a bunch of feckless cowards with no balls, and they were actively trying to prevent the parents from going in and rescuing the kids who actually did have balls as their children were dying on the floor. It's like I hope every single one of these cops, gets the justice that they deserve.
Well, you know what? Well, you made me think of it while we're talking about feckless cowards or idiots or whatever you want. How many of you saw this? The CrossFit Games. It's right near you, Kurt, or at least in the same state. Did you guys see this go down on Sunday?
I did not.
Okay. This is a horrible, horrible situation. They were having the CrossFit Games contest, which involves swimming, right?
Yeah.
Within sight of the finish line, I think it's a Slovakian competitor drowned. You could see him drowning. It was on film. He was drowning. People were screaming, hey, he's drowning. Some people on paddleboard went to go to help him, and the lifeguards or people watching pushed them away when they were heading over to rescue him. The entire footage is online. I mean, you can see it on X.
What were the lifeguards doing if they were pushing them away? Were they trying to rescue the guy? Or what were they doing?
They didn't. They were pushing the people off the course for interfering with the course. So this is a problem. The guy literally was dying, and I don't know if they were aware of it. I'm going to assume, for God's sake, that they were not aware of it, because why would you do that? But they did push people away because, technically when you have a course, you can't have people on the course. That's part of what they're doing. It's kind of supervising or controlling it. No, you can't swim here. You can't go here or whatever. And ultimately somebody died. And I think that CrossFit Games
if people were actively saying this person is drowning and lifeguards were pushing them away without trying to undergo the rescue themselves, then someone's in for a world of pain for a lawsuit. Speaking of which, if you or a loved one have recently been injured at the CrossFit Games and would like to sue, call the Kurt Mueller Law Firm, PLLC, which is now up and running, and we will represent you in your cause of action.
Nice
play. Okay, well, you know what we'll do?
Problem.
One more story. Well, we can do it. So this is actually a short one. Thoughts on the FBI releasing Crooks's body for cremation?
No particular thoughts.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not sure what much value there is really from the body itself, to be honest. But
I can actually understand. I can actually understand it at this juncture in time. Yeah, as monstrous as Thomas Crooks turned out to be, he has parents who, presumably loved him and may have sucked his parents, may have been great parents. I doubt they were great parents considering what they raised, but I'm not passing judgment on them as parents. But he has a family that loves him. It's not like he's benefiting from cremation. So it's not like it's a reward to him for anything.
It's not a reward. No. That's not the issue. That they were trying to examine him. It's like, oh, sorry, gone.
Oh, that's a different issue.
Okay, so
what do you think we're going to learn from the body? So tell me that. What do you think is lost now that he's been cremated?
Well, any genetic material or any other material that could have been on his person is no longer there.
Okay.
I do hope they've done a great job with toxicology, and they've got every possible parameter, and they have vials of blood, because that could be found. What about hair follicles? It could be proven some sort of drug interaction or things like that. The point is that why did they release it? And
so
not,
your point is destroying
people
evidence, not as far as like let's string this guy up and leave him hanging as a.
Oh no way! Yeah,
you want to put him? No, let's put him in a giblet. Let's go old school.
Yeah,
until his body decays and the crows eat away his flesh.
Right, and tear out his eyeballs.
No, that's not what I was saying.
Old school. I like what you're laying down, man.
In the cooler, keeping him.
Because that was the first thought I had. Is like, I don't want this guy getting a proper burial. I want him like, I want him basically left there and everything. Every time you think of
we'll do it old school.
Every time you think of Thomas Crooks,
hang him from a bridge or something as a warning to
it should be on video that we all can actually watch the birds pecking away and hear the caw caw going on every time, in a feeding frenzy there. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see for him.
I mean, it wouldn't even be cruel and unusual punishment because he's dead, so it's not even an Eighth Amendment violation. So let's go.
Well, there's that as an alternative too.
Okay, but you're talking about the evidence. Let's come back.
Punitive humiliation. Okay.
So let's. So as far as like, if they cremated before getting every possible bit of evidence out of him, that's obviously sus. I agree with you. That's kind of disconcerting. But I will tell you this. Did you hear about the Secret Service failure this week in North Carolina in protecting Trump?
I heard that somebody
there was a new one.
Somebody had to go breastfeed.
Yeah,
I thought that was relating to the other story in Pennsylvania. I didn't know that was a new thing in North Carolina.
No, it's new.
Okay, so I'm missing this story completely.
Okay. He had a rally on Tuesday.
Inform me of the story.
Tuesday. Okay, on Tuesday he's got a rally. He went to vote. And then he goes to a rally in North Carolina. So he did the early voting, which I think was an interesting question as to whether we should be encouraging the GOP to engage in early voting. But that's not part of this story. When he gets to North Carolina, apparently, at this 5 minutes beforehand, Susan Crabtree gave a pretty detailed report about this. She's a reporter for Real Clear Politics. She says that it's been confirmed from 3 different sources that one of the Secret Service agents abandoned her post, didn't tell anyone, didn't tell the site agent, as the person overseeing the entire thing, abandoned her post to breastfeed, to milk herself for her infant. Now, you're not allowed to bring kids to, when you're a Secret Service agent, believe it or not, there's a policy against bringing your kids to work day. But apparently, while she was supposed to be protecting Trump, the site agent noticed it 5 minutes before Trump was supposed to go up on stage that she wasn't at her post. Instead, apparently somebody who is what they call unpinned, meaning doesn't have clearance, is the person who led her to the emergency site room, like the main site room, that she should use that as her personal milking station. So she goes there, and she was found there with 2 of her family members. Apparently, I assume that there were 2 minors that she was babysitting. And apparently, she just decided, I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just going to ditch off, gallivant over to the emergency main setup room there. I'll be led there by someone who God knows how the hell they have clearance to get in there and access to get in there. And they're the one who's going to lead the Secret Service agent into that area. And I'm going to just disappear from my post and just start breastfeeding right now. And I was just like, this is just an astonishing breach. And what does the Secret Service say about this afterwards when they're questioned about this? Like, well, we look at this as an internal personnel matter, so we're not going to talk to you about it. About anything further related to this story. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is not an internal personnel matter. You have Donald Trump, who's multiple threats on his life. There's been an attempted assassination, who people have already died taking bullets that were intended for him, and 2 others seriously injured. And you're telling me that one of your Secret Service agents, someone who's promised to be a meat suit and jump in front of bullets, is a mother, a nursing mother, which I don't even know why the hell she would even have that job, and while she has that role, and that she brings her kids to work there because apparently this is like a parade. You can bring my kids here. Oh, look, there's Donald Trump. Kids wave over to Donald Trump. What the hell are you doing? What are you doing? And I understand that. Look, sometimes babysitter will cancel out. Then you call up your field team and you say, look, I don't have a babysitter. You want to send someone over here? You want to replace me? Because I can't bring an infant over to the place where I'm supposed to be standing in front of bullets on behalf of President Trump. So, and if she's, and then you don't tell anyone, so people are expecting you to be covering a certain area, and you're just not there. You're just not there. And now, what does the Secret Service want to tell us? They want to tell us, oh, I'm sorry. This is an internal personnel matter. The fact that our own agents don't take protecting Donald Trump's life seriously, that's a personnel matter. That's not for you to worry about. That's a personnel matter. The fact that she's so incompetent that she either doesn't recognize it's a dangerous situation, or she recognizes dangerous situation and says, this is a place I should bring an infant, which means that she's a crap caretaker and is the worst possible choice for someone who's supposed to be a caretaker of the life of the president, because she can't even take care of her own stupid kids. Not the kids are stupid, but she's too stupid and irresponsible to know how to take care of her own children, but she's supposed to take care of the life of Donald Trump. What the hell is happening here? So we see the clownish Secret Service, and they are clowns, that you either have to say you are grossly incompetent, or now we're getting to willful recklessness, intentional recklessness, where it's just like, we clearly don't care about the significance of what we're doing here, the gravity of the impact on our country that would come if, God forbid, someone succeeded in causing significant harm to Donald Trump, because that would rip this country apart irrevocably. For decades, this country would be a mess if, God forbid, someone actually succeeded in this. And we're just going to sit here like a bunch of clowns saying, oh, it doesn't matter if we're at our post. Doesn't matter if people know where we are. Doesn't matter if I'm bringing kids here. Doesn't matter if I'm at a milking station. And despite the fact that I know that there are guns trained on him and countless foreign agents who are looking to actually put a bullet in him, it's my job to stop them. And I'm going to go off nursing with these kids who are not supposed to be here, because what the hell? Not only telling anyone where I am, and you're going to tell me now, Secret Service, oh, no, internal personnel. It's not for you. It's not for you. We got everything handled here just fine. You got nothing handled. You suck at this. You suck at this, and there should be transparency. Word, right? We need transparency. We need to know exactly how this is being handled, and that every Secret Service agent who's assigned to Donald Trump, because I don't know if this is a policy-wide thing that Secret Service just sucks in all their protection, or they specifically suck extra hard for Donald Trump. But certainly with respect to this particular protectee, they are grossly incompetent. And you're past the stage we have a right to say this is internal. No, we're watching you. We're going to continue watching you. And that's the way it should be, because clearly if you're not being watched, you suck at doing one of the most significant jobs that are required in this country.
Joe, but the baby sucks, and that's a good thing.
I saw this. I was almost as outraged by the Secret Service head saying this is not your business, internal personnel matter, as
my milkshake brings all the assassins to the yard, and they're like, it's better than yours.
I am so
damn
outraged.
Right. It's better than yours. I could shoot him, but I have to charge.
I dropped a short form video.
La. Cited and.
And by the way, we're perfectly fine with breastfeeding. It's just there is always a time and a place for different activities.
Of course,
and this would not be the time or the place, obviously.
It's one of the most noble jobs in the world, being a mother. Arguably the most noble job, being a mother. But the point is, part of being a responsible mother is you don't bring your infant into a dangerous situation. If you don't think it's a dangerous situation, then what the hell are you doing there? You're not the one who's supposed to be doing this job.
Well, I always want to point that out, because people would be like, you're automatically being misogynistic, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there are 1,000 jobs in the Secret Service that you could be doing and be taking a break. Counterfeiting, other things, catching Brett Johnson, who I interviewed, who was a Secret Service number one cyber criminal. There's a lot that they could be doing. And, being able to go take care of the child, all within the duties. So some people are not aptly placed in some jobs. And I think that's perfectly fair. But on that note,
Secret Service is neither secret nor service. Discuss.
Oh God. For next time, Kurt, what do you have coming?
Well, I've been trying to experiment with a more video on demand format for the last couple of days, and reception so far has been relatively well. So I've been doing with just kind of edited scripted content, really been experimenting with. I've only done probably less than 10 scripted videos total on my channel's history. So in the last weekend, I've done like 5 of them in the last week. So I've been experimenting with scripted content, and I've been using AI art to try to break up the visual flow. To make things more interesting. So I've got a couple good stories out there. I got one on the Idaho 4 murder situation revolving change of venue. Today, the one that's getting uploaded is relating to the assault weapons ban by Maryland. I got one on the Titan sub lawsuit that's coming down, one on Elon Musk's recent victory on versus the advertisers. So there's a couple good stories in there. And so check that out and see if you like it. So experimenting with a new format. People seem to like it. I just hired an editor, so we'll see because I've been editing them myself, so we'll see how the new editor comes along. Cross your fingers. And so that's what I'm doing. So check out my new video on demand content. Let me know what you think.
All right. Really quickly before I go, I don't know when this came in. Somebody left a locals tip. Reposting since I forgot to add a tip. Am I wrong, or is Viva constantly using bada boom, bada bing? I think he was looking for a rim shot noise. Yeah, well, David's gone, and I'm way late in reading that tip, but I do deeply appreciate that, and on locals. And Kurt, I'm actually doing some of that myself, pre-recording some things for yet another channel because I have a disease. But how has the AI been working out for you doing that, and how has reading scripts been? Because I'm
getting used to reading scripts has been different, and writing the scripts has been interesting and challenging in a lot of ways. But I downloaded a little app on my phone for teleprompter for the cheap. I think it's called Prompt Smart. Yeah, Prompt Smart Pro. I think I paid like $40 for it one time. But what it does is it has voice activation. So I just put it right on top of my camera because I have a flip up LED screen. So there's just enough tension from the LED screen to hold my phone in place. So I'm looking right into the camera when I record it. And it's getting used to it. It's been challenging, but it seems to have been working great, for a very sort of botched solution. It's been working well. The AI generated images have been okay. I tried experimenting with AI generated moving images, but they didn't really work. I've been using basically all the major AI generated art. Leonardo, Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and a lot of other things trying to find the right art style. That's been challenging. Trying to find the right things has been challenging, but it's been good so far. So far it's been okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to use this to.
How long does it take you to make a video? How long does it take you to make a video?
It takes like a full day by the time I'm done.
How long is the video? How many minutes long?
8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
To script it, record it, edit it, produce the video, put it together. That's a full day's work.
What kind of views do you get on it compared to your live streams? Sorry.
It's been doing pretty well. Like the one I did on the mayor did like 20,000 views, so it did pretty well.
Got 20,000.
Yeah,
well, that's pretty good.
So I'm gonna probably try to find more stuff about more corrupt politicians because people seem to like that shit.
Eric seems to have something on his mind. Get it off your chest. What's on your mind?
Oh,
Eric?
Thank you, Joe. Well, this is what I'm experimenting on too, Kurt. So let's see.
How does Nate do it so fast? Nate has editors too. That's how he does it so fast.
They think of secret agents, unsuspecting victims, and a government willing to do anything for national security.
Looks good.
We were terrified of him.
Wow.
Nobody really knew why, but we were all terrified of him.
Project MKULTRA, a secret CIA program started during the Cold War, aiming to
do you use stock video for this that they provide for you?
I'm using a combination of stock video, AI, human editing, rewriting scripts, things like that. But it's yet another channel. But I just put a link in the chat if anybody wants to check that out and subscribe. It
sounds like maybe the balance between your voice and the other audio might be a little bit I'd prefer a little bit more separation, so your voice would punch a little bit higher. So I think there should be a little bit more space between those two volume levels. But otherwise, it looks really nice.
It does look. It looks really cool, actually.
Yeah,
yeah. That's coming out. It is called Proven Conspiracies, because that's the angle of it. There's a lot of conspiracies out there, a lot of conspiracy theories, but I wanted to cover only those that have been acknowledged and proven as historical fact. And it's not only government conspiracies like MKUltra, Operation Midnight Climax, but also the Phoebus cartel, which is actually a light bulb cabal, because I want to get into the corporate conspiracies as well. These are all factual things. And I hope you guys consider, checking it out and subscribing. I'll be doing Operation Midnight Climax, and that was a test run on the video, Kurt. So a lot of things like audio and things like that are still
I like it. I like the direction it's heading. It looks really promising.
Yeah. Yeah, very.
So I hope you guys.
Now your editor, whoever's editing that's pretty good. What are you?
I'm learning when my videos.
Me trying to find an editor I can afford has been challenging.
It's a combination of AI and human. So first pass with the AI editing and then tweaking, and I'm working on myself trying to tweak out as well, because I think that there's power in both. You can use AI to help find things, simplify things, do stuff like that, but then you need to kind of fix it to make it get rid of the uncanny valley aspect.
Nice. What you're looking at there.
Wow.
What you're looking at there, if you notice that little slope, that is what we in the industry, we being myself, referring to myself in the royal we, refer to as tithing, because ever since I crossed 100,000 subs, I came out of Sabbath because it was like right before Shabbos. You were there, Eric, I think, right? And when I crossed 100,000 and Robert Gouveia very generously pushed his audience to jump over and sub to me to help me get past the last 100 subs, and I ended up at 102. I ended up actually at 102,400, and over the last 28 days, you can watch the plane crashing of what we call tithing. Now, tithing is after I have a growth spurt, all of a sudden, like a plane just coming down, everyone just starts magically unsubscribing at a very steady rate, never like the fall off the cliff type of thing that would be organic if I did something that outraged my viewers. But no. It's a different 30 to 40 people every single day, which basically say, oh, I'm going to just decide to wake up today and just unsubscribe from a guy who, I'm just unsubscribing today, which I've never bothered unsubscribing from anyone, but apparently a brand new 30 people, 40 people every day are unsubscribed by YouTube, and I'm supposed to believe that this is organic. So that's the plane that comes crashing down. That's got me down at 102, just barely over 102,000. I at this particular, which is why I started making videos. I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can try to fight back against that. I actually did a video yesterday on that rant topic that I covered, where I was talking about that story with the breastfeeding mom, with the best breastfeeding Secret Service agent, and I had high percentage of likes per view. I had I don't know 150 comments in the first couple of hours, which is a really high comment rate. Most of my videos get under 20 comments, and I had 150 comments on that thing, and still zero growth whatsoever. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm starting to make videos, and I'm going to be stealing from your ideas here as far as trying to use AI to try and ratchet that up. But on the mainstream, what I'm doing, I'm trying to help you wrap up your show here. In the mainstream, in the mainstream, as far as what I'm doing is I podcast every night. I talk about law and politics. Obviously, there's a lot of politics to talk about during this particular season. It's meme season. This is the time every 4 years when we get the greatest memes out there. I try to throw at least one in every video, so you can one that's going to actually make you laugh out loud, because I don't like sharing garbage. It's got to be something that's actually really funny. So I urge you to check it out. If you haven't yet checked it out, come on over. We'll talk some law. We'll talk some politics. Talk about Kamala Harris's policies, or talk about Donald Trump and where he's going. And it's not at all a cult, but it's just as fun. So
all right,
so
and again, plug one more time. Cults lead to conspiracies. You can see it's brand new. So we have a
Check
whopping
out Proven
134 subscribers. So I'm on the other end of the.
Give me the link. I got to sub up now. I need to know about Proven Conspiracies.
I think you should. The videos will start hopefully coming out this weekend. I want to really try to get them right. I'm planning to release 2 immediately and then probably 1 a week for a while, but they're all evergreen. Trying to go for the higher production quality, as you saw with what was going on.
That was great.
And I'm excited about it too because I love these subjects.
Yeah. I know this is right in your sweet spot. I think you may have actually hit upon like the right mesh of areas that you are relatively uniquely knowledgeable about. That there probably aren't dozens of people who are following this stuff more closely than you are on the entire planet. So it's right in your sweet spot and what you enjoy, and that's when people end up producing the best content imaginable. And you can certainly have the experience and knowledge in what you're talking about. I'm sure it's gonna be a great channel. So I'm subbed up, and you should be too.
Sold. And thank you very much, Joe. And you can always subscribe to this channel. And I have great people like Joe every week. And Joe's been coming on here for 3 years now.
I think something like that. Yeah. Ever since my first week on here, I think I've missed I've definitely missed fewer than 10 shows over the last 3 years. I've been easily your most consistent guest, I think, as far as just being here every week. I never got co-hosting. Dude, I'm praying for that day, that one day I get to rise up to the level that he trusts me as a co-host. So far, he doesn't trust me yet.
I trust you completely, but Joe, can you be here at noon when it starts?
That's a fair point. Yeah, I almost never show up until 12:15.
Otherwise, I would love that. I had to miss a week 2 weeks ago because I could not find somebody to take
a reliable person to be awake at noon.
So I always love, and everybody too. Please push Joe. But yes,
if you're ever in that scenario and you tell me beforehand that you need me to host it, I'll do that. I'll make sure. I'll make sure I'm here.
So. Okay, I appreciate it because I while it's my channel, I don't consider it my show. I consider it really, all these guys make it great. I just am facilitating after fashion. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, you extricate some of my best material. So I love hanging out here with you.
Thank you, man. And thank all of you. Again, if you like this, please subscribe every Friday at noon, and we'll see you next week.